Hi there, everybody. Russ Lewis in the KHOU Newsroom. We're back on our digital platforms here just after 1 o'clock, as promised, for an update from authorities on this big explosion this morning at a facility in Northwest Houston.
Good afternoon. So
Let's take a listen.
Going to provide a little update from the last time that we had a briefing. I want to welcome Mayor Pro Tem Martin here, that's here with us, Senator Whitmire, Councilmember Amy Peck, as well as members from the ATF and Police Department that are joining us here today. So as far as the operation goes for the Houston Fire Department, we've moved away from the hazardous response. It's moved into the recovery phase at this point. We do have some search dogs that we've brought in to the scene to assist us with searching the area. At this time, it's still under the control of the fire department, the entire scene. We're going to proceed after in unison, I guess, in assessing the homes that are in the neighborhood to the west, and just for structural stability. As far as the operation, the rescue operation, as I said, we moved into a recovery phase right now. It's going to be meticulous. It's going to take some time. We got members of the hazmat team, rescue team from the fire department, as well as ATF, assisting us in this operation. We've set up a unified command with all the agencies that I mentioned here, and we're moving systematically, working our way back to what we will call ground zero, I guess, which is the actual plant that blew up. We'll open it up for questions, but at this point, that's where we are in regards to the rescue and recovery operation from the Houston Fire Department. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague here, Art Acevedo, and he'll talk a little bit about the investigation portion of this incident. Seguro. Mire, a este momento, desde la última vez que hablamos, hemos pasado a otra fase de la investigación. Tenemos 3 perros que nos van a asistir con la investigación, también juntos con el ATF, juntos con el Departamento de Policías y las otras agencias que están aquí ayudándonos. La área todavía está segura, todavía no hemos accesado el daño que se ha hecho en la vecindad al oeste de este local. Pero a este momento vamos a proceder poco a poco hasta que lleguemos hasta la área que fue donde ocurrió la explosión. ¿Sí? Okay.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I want to just say thank you, everybody, for your patience. It's been a long night for all of us, and the other thing that we want to throw out to our community, this community is a community of faith, to please pray for the 2 victims that we have uncovered here at the scene. These victims are high probability that they are employees of this company. Chief Pena, myself, Senator Whitmire, the ATF SAC here, Fred Malinowski, and Mayor Pro Tem and our council member have been in contact with the families. We've made it, we told them that we can't say 100% it's their loved ones, but you know, you connect the dots, the probability is high, very high that it's them. I can just tell you that the company that's involved has been nothing but cooperative so far with us. This is a company that's been here for many, many years, and in talking to the employees and their families, they're a pretty tight-knit group of people. I mean, they consider themselves extended family. So my condolences, all of our condolences go out to the families involved. And obviously, this is an area where, you know, it's not the most affluent neighborhood. So my thoughts are with all the individuals, whether they rent or own, that will potentially be displaced by this event this morning. And so for those that can help, just remember the Red Cross is set up. They're here in the area, and if you can help these families that are being displaced today, please let us know. I'm going to give you a quick overview of where we're at. I'm going to then kick it over to Fred Malinowski, who's our colleague from the ATF. He's a special agent in charge here, and then we'll ask the Mayor Pro Tem or the council member if they want to say anything, and then at the end we'll open up to questions to any of us up here. Jerry Pena, who's the assistant director over the Houston Forensic Science Centers here, if anybody has specific questions for him, but he's not planning on making a statement. First, let's start with the investigation. The investigation has been launched as a multidisciplinary, multi-jurisdictional investigation that is being conducted by the Houston Fire Department Arson Division. the Houston Police Department Homicide Division and Environmental Crimes Division, with assistance from Kim Ogg's office in terms of their environmental crimes unit, and we do have a district attorney here on scene. This morning, in consultation with Chief Pena, we made the decision that one of the things that's really important when you have an incident like this is to know what's the causative factor, what happened. And we know that the ATF does a phenomenal job in terms and brings phenomenal capabilities in terms of these type of incidents. They've got a lot of experience in it. So we made a request through Fred Malinowski, who will speak after me, to the ATF in terms of providing their national response team. Fred thankfully sent it up 2 chains to the director of the ATF, Director Lombardo, is a great leader, and obviously that they've approved it, and they will be here on the ground. So you have a federal and local joint investigation with those 3 entities. That investigation has already begun, but until the fire department releases the actual scene from a safety perspective, investigators obviously won't be processing that scene. That immediate scene where ground zero occurred will probably be under police control for probably 4 to 5 days, but that should have a minimal impact on this community. We have some closures I'll go over. Gesner will remain closed for the remainder of this day. Gesner, which is this main street that we're on right now, between Gennard and Clay Road, will remain closed for the remainder of the day to facilitate all the emergency equipment and the investigators. There are 2 neighborhoods that have been impacted by this blast. The first neighborhood is West Branch neighborhood. We will be putting this out through our OEM and through our social media and others. And that neighborhood is from Goodrum Road on the north, Clay on the south, Shadowdale on the west, and Gesner on the east. Again, that's Goodrum Road on the north, Clay on the south, Shadowdale on the west, and Gesner on the east. The other neighborhood that is under police control right now because of damage to homes is the Carverdale neighborhood, and that is Gennard Road on the north. Again, this is the Carverdale neighborhood, Girard Road on the north, Clay on the south, Gesner on the west, and Talina Way and Holly Hook, which is a little area right up here. If you need to go to those neighborhoods, the only people that will be allowed in until further notice are residents. We will be having patrols in that area looking for anybody that might try to loot some of the houses that may end up having to be evacuated because they're deemed unstable by the fire department. And we will have those patrols 24/7 in the upcoming days. So stay out of that area. You will not be allowed to be in, to come in those areas. The other thing that's really important for the community, again, we put it out earlier, these blasts have tremendous power. We know that we've had blasts over the years where evidence is found a mile away. Do not assume that there's no evidence if you're just because you're a mile from here. Please, if you're within a mile or 2 of this area, when you get home, check around your yard, see if you find any type of debris, any type of evidence, whether it's human remains. Please let us know. We only have 2 people that are accounted for, and we have recovered 2 bodies. That doesn't mean that there's people that no one knows were in the area, and so we cannot say that whether or not there's more victims, but right now it appears a high probability there's only 2 victims. And so with that, Mayor Turner is on his way back. He will be back here on the ground about 5 p.m., and there will be one more briefing, more than likely later on early evening between 6 or 7 p.m., and that will be the final briefing of the day. And so with that, I want to turn it over very quickly, unless you want to do Spanish first. Anybody in español? Bueno, there we go. Ok, so en español, estamos para empezar, como dijo el jefe Peña, que la emergencia ya ha parado, no tenemos ningún peligro sobre esta emergencia, pero lo que sí tenemos es una investigación criminal que hemos empezado con la policía de Houston, la división de homicidios, y también con nuestros colegas en el arson y nuestros colegas en el nivel federal. Esta mañana el jefe Peña y yo tomamos la decisión de que queremos todos los equipos con especialización, y el ATF tiene una unidad que es excelente, y pedimos que su team nacional que venga aquí a Houston, y esta tarde van a llegar. Esta área, la calle que ven aquí, esta calle principal, esta calle no va a estar abierta la Gesner, desde la Gennard al norte hasta la Clay. Esta carretera no va a abrir. Hay dos vecinarios que han estado impactados por este evento. El West Branch, que está al norte en la Goodrum, al sur en la Clay, al oeste en Saddledale y al este Gesner. Y el otro vecindario es el Coverdale, que está al norte Gennard, al sur Clay, al oeste Gesner y al este Talina Way y Hollybrook. No van a poder entrar a esa área hasta el control del Departamento Policiaco de Houston. No van a poder entrar sin identificación si no eres un residente de esa área. También vamos a tener patrullas patrullando las 24 horas en estos vecinarios para asegurar que nadie esté robando a estas personas que son víctimas que desgraciadamente no van a poder vivir en su casa. Y esta área aquí va a estar cerrada donde está la investigación por 4 o 5 días. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to the SAC for the Houston field office, Fred Malinowski of the ATF, and then we'll turn it over from there to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Good afternoon. As the Chief said, the ATF National Response Team is going to be coming in. They're traveling here today. I just want to give you a little background on that team. That team brings experts from across the country in. They've worked over 850 scenes. All major arsons and major explosives that have happened in this country in the last 30 years have been worked by the National Response Team. They bring chemists, they bring explosive experts, they bring fire research experts, they bring canines, they bring electrical engineers, and then they have the ability to reach out and grab any other experts they need within the federal government. So they will be here just to give you a little background of what they've done in the past. If you remember when we had the major explosion in West Texas, that was a team that processed that scene. They also processed all the scenes during the Austin bombing case. They're ATF's most elite team, so we are bringing the best people from across the country in to make sure that we know exactly what happened during this incident. So thank you.
Okay, I want to add one other thing, because when you talk about criminal investigations and you talk about explosions, people start thinking of terrorism, they start thinking about intentional acts. As of right now, we have no indication that there's any terrorism nexus or of any intentional act. Having said that, this industry that we're dealing with, when you're talking about chemicals and you're talking about these type of industries, are highly regulated industries, very strict, stringent requirements in terms of a lot of things they have to do. And if we investigate and we find that things that were supposed to be done by either the primary company or vendors that are servicing their equipment and things of that nature, and then people die and we have explosions and all these other things, that can create a criminal offense. And so it's really important that the community knows that that's what we're investigating at this point, and there's no indication of an intentional act that led to the explosion in terms of wanting to make the explosion occur, either by some disgruntled employee or anybody else, or a terrorist event. Are everybody clear on that? Okay, thank you. Chief Pena wants to add one last thing, and then we're going to turn it over to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Chief. I just want to clarify where we are on the recovery phase. We're conducting our primary searches in the area of the explosion. Okay, we've conducted a primary search in the neighborhood to the west of this location. In that area, we're also going back a second time for our secondary assessment and to ensure that there are no victims in those homes. Okay, no indication on the initial search, but we're going to do a more systematic search. We have, as I mentioned, rescue dogs along with us, members from the ATF and police department, to ensure that we're doing a systematic search of these neighborhoods. Okay, so we don't expect. Well, I'm not going to say anything else beyond that, and we'll have additional information if we find information that should be reported to the media. Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, as the Chief mentioned, Mayor Turner lands at 5 o'clock today. We've been in constant communication with the mayor regarding this incident, and he sends his condolences to the two families. We have established a shelter at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's located at 4703 Shadowdale. Our next phase is moving from the shelter that we established into temporary housing for those families, because as you can see, a lot of these houses around this neighborhood are not going to be livable for a number of weeks. So we've moved from the shelter stage over to the temporary housing stage. So folks that have issues with the homes that they live in now, please head over to 4703 Shadowdale, and we'll work on the transition into homes from there. So thank you.
Hey, one other thing before we open it, do you want to say anything real quick, Councilmember? Sorry.
So our office is working on recovery efforts as well. If you have any donations that you'd like to drop off, please do so at the Duncan YMCA on Clay Road. They're available to take donations. And if anyone listening has any issues, any questions, any concerns, please contact my office at 832-393-3010. We're available to help. Thank you.
Karen, do you want to say anything on behalf of the state?
Just briefly, the state is monitoring it. I've been in contact with the DPS and the emergency center in Austin. They are not directly involved right now because of the excellent job of HPD and the Houston Fire. I would emphasize that this is a working class neighborhood. And the real tragedy is these individuals woke up this morning needing resources that quite frankly most of them do not have. So I would reach out to the faith community. The Salvation Army, Red Cross is present, and I think this is going to require a community effort, not only our agencies, but neighborhoods, adjoining neighborhoods, to reach out to these folks that do not have the resources that maybe other communities do. So just notice that this is a working class neighborhood, and they've got some real challenges. But let me say the victim assistance program of HPD and Houston Fire that I've witnessed this morning, I cannot say enough about them. And our two chiefs have sat with the families, hugged the families. We're dealing with family members that are in the military that need to be expedited their travel. So I'm just here to say the state is impressed with the local community operation and certainly these agencies. But I think in days to come we will do a review by the TCQ and other agencies if warranted. But at this point it's certainly too early to energize those agencies.
Hey, one last thing that I'm not sure if I tweeted, I'm a Twitter bug. We have one family who we believe is one of the deceased employees. The son is a 21-year-old Marine, and so you guys need to tag the United States Marine Corps at Camp Lejeune. The family has contacted the Marines, and the Marine says until there's 100% certainty he will not be released. Well, Marines, we need you to release that young man to get him home.
We're working on it.
We're a family. We shouldn't have to get the president involved. We shouldn't have to get anybody involved. We all know what the right thing to do. So please tweet at the Marine Corps. Let this Marine get on a plane and get home to his family, because no matter what, his family needs him. And you can't be a family in words. And Semper Fi aren't hollow words. Get that Marine home, get him on a plane, get him home to Houston. With that, we'll open it up to questions.
Hey, Chief, can you speak to the gender of the down?
Two males. They're two male Hispanics, a long time. Again, it's not 100%, but probability being what it is, we don't have any other people that are looking for their family members. Their vehicles are here. You connect all those dots, but you can't say until you definitively identify them that it's 100%. But we're not in the business of keeping people false hope. And so the probability of that not being the two male Hispanic employees are pretty slim.
Were they the only two people in the building?
They're the only two people that were injured there that we're aware of. Again, we've got cadaver dogs here. We'll start doing a secondary search. But I can tell you that, like I told them, they're people of faith. There was somebody that was very close. His truck went flying, and all he ended up was with cuts. That's the person that was transported.
Chief, can you talk a little bit about the propylene? I know that
I'll talk to the fire chief. I'm a cop. We can't even say that word, so I'll
Chief,
turn it
¿podría
over.
decir en español, se trata de dos víctimas hispanas y de la
Sí.
necesidad de su hijo?
Mire, pensamos que los dos empleados que murieron aquí, que estamos casi 100% seguros, son hispanos. Llevan muchos años trabajando con esta compañía. Son una compañía que es como una familia. Y uno de los hijos de 21 años está en las marinas de los Estados Unidos en Camp Lejeune. Necesitamos los Marines que mande ese muchacho para acá para que esté su familia. Okay, thank you. Chief, that's
there
for you.
was talk about propylene earlier
Yes.
in the day. There was a concern about it. Is it still a concern? What does this do?
No. At this time, we've secured the tank. So they have a 2,000 gallon propylene tank on scene. The valving has been secured for the pipes that were leading into the warehouse where the manufacturing was, whatever process they do. So that's been secured. We have no further concerns with leaks, but we do have personnel here on scene to monitor that, as well as the people who actually filled the tank on Monday. That's how we know that what levels that we should have been at.
Were there other on site
There
that
are-
were destroyed?
No, none of the tanks were destroyed. We had our hazmat unit out there. They did an assessment of the integrity of those tanks. They seem to be intact. None of them were visibly damaged. And at this time, we're not concerned with future leaks.
Do you have a good accounting of all chemicals that were in that property? As the LEPC for the area? Do you have a good accounting for that?
Right. We do. Our inspectors They're gathering that information. We will have a full inventory of what we know. The building owner, the business owner, is here with us. He's being fully cooperative with the investigation, and so we have no question that we're going to get the full inventory and MSDSs for all the materials that were present. What I can't tell you right now, what I can say is that there is no hazard with the air quality. Okay, we do have hazmat on scene. They've been monitoring throughout the day. We have had no concerns with the quality of the air that we've been breathing at this moment.
Chief, are you aware of any incidents that have happened at this particular warehouse? And when do you think you're going to have a handle on whether or not there's other victims besides the two you just identified?
Look, what we can say right now is, and I don't want to get too far into the investigation, but what we can say is that the building or the business owner has accounted for everybody on his roster. There's two that are still unaccounted for, but we won't be able to make that determination until we physically go in there and ID the victims.
Chief, you talked about that, you asking residents to look in their homes for debris, but also you mentioned body parts. Is there any evidence or possibility that the blast could have done that, or is that just because of the force of the blast, or is that just something you have to look into?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, blasts, you can talk to my ATF brother. When you have these type of events, they're very powerful. We know that we have a body part that's quite a distance away. We know that there's debris that's about a half a mile. And 20 years ago, we had an incident here in Houston where, like a year later, they found a body part from that incident a mile away. So, you know, we'd rather be safe and be and err on the side of casting a wide net and having our community, which is really the best force multiplier for the law enforcement, first responders, the community itself. And I think that was on display during Harvey. That's on display every day here in Houston. We'd rather that everybody gets eyes around their property. So if there is something we can recover, then do make assumptions. Assumptions in this business, if you make assumptions, you do it and you err on the side of let's cast a wide net.
So you mentioned it was about half a mile away. Was that one of the victims that you've identified, or you think? Or?
More than likely, yes.
Chief Pena, when do you think you'll be able? When do you think you'll be able to actually get into Ground Zero to start that kind of boots on the ground investigation?
Well, we're in the process of that now. You know, so we were waiting initially because we still had some fires that were burning. We decided not to extinguish those because every time you add water, you have a concern with the runoff. So we decided to let those things burn before we actually started moving into the hot zone, right? But in parallel with that, we were doing assessments in the neighborhoods. At this moment, we've moved past the hazard phase. Now we're in the recovery phase, and we're systematically moving back into the area where we believe was Ground Zero. Let me put it that way.
And Chief, how many employees were there at the time that this happened? The two victims were there. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Go ahead.
So how many employees were there when this happened, and do we know exactly where the two employees or the two victims, where they were when the explosion happened?
No. All we know is that we have two victims that are in the compound. As far as where they were within that compound, I'm not exactly sure at this moment.
But they were the only two in the building?
They were the only two there at the time?
We only have two that are unaccounted for. We don't have anybody else looking for their family members. So, you know, we're assuming that they were the only two there.
You said the owners were cooperative. Does it give you any indication as to what may have happened?
Well, again, you know, until we conduct the investigation, the cause and origin, all we can tell you is you know, it was may have been a leak, but that's just a huge assumption at this time. Until we're able to get in there, do the cause and origin, with the assistance of our partnering agencies, we won't have a full determination.
Did the owner tell you if those two employees were there because of possibility of a leak, or that was their shift?
No.
That was their shift?
No. They were not because of a report of a leak. There is a gym on the facility. The reports are that employees would come in early before their shift to work out. So again, we're making huge assumptions at this time. Let us finish the investigation, and that way we can give you some concrete information instead of just assumptions.
Chief,
Yes.
do you still believe about 200 homes damaged? Or is it
We have about 199 homes in this area. Okay, we've assessed between 180 190 at this point. The majority of those have received some sort of damage. The ones that are more proximal to the area of the blast are damaged heavily. Some of them off the foundation. So it's just a range of damage in that location. Yes.
We heard reports that there was a man who was injured with a head injury inside a trailer behind this business. And he was found after your fire department's primary search. Do you have any information on his condition? I know he was transported.
No, not at this moment. We do know that this was as maybe 2 hours or 3 hours ago. We had reports that there was 18 patients throughout the various hospitals that reported to the hospital with complaints reportedly from the blast. But from the HFD standpoint, we've transported that one individual. There may have been a second one transported later, but I know for sure that we transported one earlier this morning.
Chief specifically about that second one.
Yeah.
Told us
Don't know.
they have not been allowed to go back into their homes to board up windows.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, we're going to start letting residents go back in here shortly. They have to have ID. We know that this is a large, significant Hispanic population. Some of them may not have IDs, but our officers are smart enough to know how to separate people, interview people. We have ways to identify them through their registration, all kinds of. So we want people to come back in because we do want them to board up their homes if the windows are broken, and we want them to be able to do that starting today. So we will be doing that in probably the next 30 minutes or so. Okay. Sí, es importante para la comunidad hispana. Acuérdese que es el Departamento de Policía de Houston. Aquí somos una ciudad que todos andamos juntos y nos llevamos. Acuérdese, si vive en esta área, si tiene identificación no va a tener problema en entrar. Si no tiene identificación puede usar un bill, puede usar el registro del vehículo, pero los oficiales sí van a estar tratando de asegurar que no es una persona que quiere venir a robar. Pero no tengan temor, aquí no está en la inmigración, aquí no está nada de eso, aquí estamos para ayudar y asistir a la comunidad. Les suplicamos que en los últimos, como 30 minutos, más o menos, vamos a empezar a dejar que las personas que están, los residentes vengan, sí, a la vez que el departamento de bomberos determine que no es peligroso entrar a la casa, lo van a dejar entrar a su casa y si tienen que cubrir las ventanas o algo, pueden hacerlo. Okay? All right, thank you all.
This is a familiar tragedy for Houston. What do you say to those? What did you say to those families when you were trying to get service?
I mean, look, let me just say this about this company's been here for a long time. If you look at the gym that they put together for their employees, they care about their employees. I mean, they've invested in them. You extend your condolences to them, and I'm not going to go into the details, but it's never fun to talk to people about the possibility of loved ones and the high probability the loved one died. But I think that in this city that's led by a mayor that really cares about the community and that has elected officials that care, we really are a big city that is a family. And so we wanted to be the chief, the fire chief, the ATF. We wanted to be there to tell the family ourselves. And the other thing that happens is that people want to know right away. And if we haven't been able to tell them right away, we wanted to be the ones that explain to them what we have been doing, because we have to mitigate the threat to the greater community, and then we have to move on to deal with them. But I think that the fact that we did that, we want to take victims and turn them into survivors, and we want to take victims and help them restore their lives moving forward. And a big part of that is how do we as a community, as elected officials, as directors, how do we treat our community? And in this city, I think we all treat each other as family. So I think they really appreciate it. Okay, thank you all very much. There will be no other briefings here unless it's a public safety issue till the mayor gets here, and you're probably looking at 6 or 7 o'clock. We'll put that out in time at about 5, and we'll let you know where. More likely it'll be here. Thank you. Get the Marines to get that Marine home.
And wrapping up there, that update from right near the plant that exploded this morning. That is Watson grinding and manufacturing at 4525 Gessner. You just heard from Chief Art Acevedo, also Chief Sam Pena, an agent from the ATF as well. Mayor Turner, you just heard, on his way back from the Conference of Mayors in D.C., landing about 5 o'clock back here in Houston to handle the city's end of this. A lot of new information coming out of this, so I want to quickly just bring you up to speed if you're just joining us on what we learned during that press conference, because it is a lot. Hazmat is done on scene. Now they're in the recovery phase with about 250 people there on site, including search dogs on that site. As we look at the aerials here of the damage, some recorded pictures from earlier today. So we know that 2 people unfortunately have died in this blast early this morning, and the police chief telling us it's believed at this point those 2 were employees of Watson. They have found their vehicles on site. The owner has accounted for everybody else, and there are just these 2 missing men who were employees, and they have found 2 bodies. So they believe that that is what they're looking at right now. They are still assessing homes in the area. There are 200 in these neighborhoods, West Branch and Carverdale, everybody being kept out at this point, but residents will be allowed back in about 2 o'clock or so. Only residents. There will be a police presence there because a lot of people will not be able to stay in their homes tonight. They're significantly damaged. We're talking about some moved off their foundations by 6 inches. And they've looked at most of the homes there, and we're told that almost all of them are damaged in some way in these 2 neighborhoods adjacent to Watson. ATF is here, and we're understanding the National Response Team from ATF is on its way to Houston. They've worked 850 scenes over the years, every major explosion in this country. These are the experts. They worked in West Texas. They worked on the Austin bombing case. These are chemists. These are fire researchers, search dogs, electrical engineers, and they have the resources. They can pull in anybody they need to try to figure out exactly what happened here. As of right now, we think it's propylene that exploded. The big tank is accounted for, secured, no leaks, but this company worked with propylene a lot, and along with liquid nitrogen, and they believe that is what exploded, causing this just devastating damage early this morning about 4:20. An explosion felt for tens of miles away from this Northwest Houston location here. Just amazing when you see that damage and you hear that people 30 miles away heard it or felt it this morning. So that is just briefly what we heard from authorities here. No more updates from that scene. They're going to wait till the mayor returns to town here. But we want to talk about just the health impacts now of what this means for those people in the neighborhood and anybody living outside of it as well. Elaine Samansky is here with us. I'm sorry, doctor, with Baylor College of Medicine, professor in the Center for Precision Environmental Health. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming down here to talk to us.
My pleasure.
We love to bring in the experts when we can and when you have time to do it. You're an expert in the health effects associated with exposures to chemicals and things like this. We were told almost immediately this morning, no big threat from this air quality wise from this propylene. Is that jive with what you believe it to be?
I think that that's correct. I think we all learned today that propylene is a byproduct of petroleum refining. It's feedstock to make plastics and other chemicals. It's a gas at room temperature. Under pressure, it becomes a liquid. And that unless the exposures are at very, very high concentrations, the health risks are not great.
We had a professor this morning tell us that once the explosion happened, he said end of story for the propylene because it's gone and it's rises up in the air because it's lighter. Is that
That's right.
Is that fair?
It does vaporize and it breaks down very quickly in the air.
We're hearing that in about 20 minutes, these people who live in these neighborhoods, and you've seen the pictures here, they live very close to this plant. These are recorded pictures, so we see some smoke there. The fires are now out, so nothing else is burning there, but they're going to start to allow the people back to their homes to check on damage, see if they can live there, stay there tonight or not. Should they be concerned at all? We're talking about 200 families here.
I think in terms of the impact of the fire and the explosion on air quality, I think that they are likely to be safe in order to return to their homes.
Even if they stayed there tonight and beyond?
That's correct.
Okay. So what are you concerned about, if anything, for these people or anybody in Houston that lives in this general area related to this explosion? Is there any danger at all that you can see possibly?
Again, while the fire was burning, there was a potential for exposures to smoke, and we know that in smoke, there's hundreds of chemicals that are present in smoke, and that there was the likelihood, the possibility of a very short-term exposure that may have caused irritation to the eyes, nose, and throat. But I think now that the fire is extinguished, there is no longer exposure to smoke, and residents have to be careful about staying safe as they re-enter their homes, given the damage that their homes may have experienced.
We learned from the Houston Fire Department that 18 people did self-report to emergency rooms, some of them with cuts. I imagine they got out of bed at 4:30 in the morning. They had blown out glass, and they probably cut themselves. So there were some cuts there, probably on broken glass, but also other people had breathing problems, as you mentioned. So they're adjacent to this fire, it's burning, and they have to go to the ER. Long-lasting damage when you're that close to an initial fire and explosion?
Well, we haven't seen yet any of the reports of what the air quality readings have been, but there is likely not to be a long-term health impact due to the short-term exposures.
We heard that there were readings back on the air quality around there pretty quickly. I didn't realize they were able to access that so quickly and tell us there, in the state's view, there wasn't a danger in the immediate area.
Right. We did hear news reports that the hazmat team was reporting no danger in the air. I think they were likely using handheld devices that were measuring total volatile organic chemicals. Propylene is one of these, and they likely did not detect elevated levels of TVOCs.
So they can do that pretty well, pretty quickly.
They can do that very quickly.
Oh, that's
and
good to hear.
On the scene.
So they're just the firefighter, hazmat guys have them with them, and
that's my understanding.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Anything else you think you need to add
No,
before we let you go?
the only other thing I would add is I don't think we should underestimate the impact, the psychological impact on emotional and mental health of residents who experienced this disaster. Our experience from Harvey tells us that disasters can have an impact, again, on emotional and mental health and well-being, and I think that may be a consideration for us here as well.
And this isn't water, obviously, but we've got some homes that have significant damage, maybe destroyed.
Devastating damage to some of the homes that close by.
So your suggestion is keep an eye on these folks, especially if you know them. They're your neighbors, relatives, right?
That's right.
Check in on them. And they may need a place to stay in addition to some mental health help, right?
That's correct, yes.
Bring that in here. Okay. Someone is telling us that nitrogen and ethylene stored in separate tanks with different ratings. What do those ratings mean? Any idea?
I don't.
Yes.
I'm not sure what that refers to.
This is a question probably for a hazmat person or a chemist, right? Gotcha. Okay, sorry about that. Didn't mean to throw you one you didn't know, but we're just getting these on Facebook. We read them off, and we're trying to help people with.
Thank you.
And I'll look too as well here real quick before we let you go, just to make sure nobody's asking questions that you can answer here. A lot of people trying to figure out, as we are too, how did this happen, but none of us can speculate on that. We just know that we think they're pretty confident it was propylene, and they're pretty confident there's not a chance for a second explosion, which is good news. And a lot of people are confusing polypropylene with propylene. Polypropylene, I believe, is the plastic after the liquid nitrogen and propylene get together, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. And a lot of people asking what this company did too. It was not a chemical plant. They had chemicals on site, but what Watson Grinding and Manufacturing did and does is they work with the oil and gas industry. They, in some cases, part of their business is to coat these parts in machines that are used in the oil and gas industry to protect them from being, damaged over time. So one of our experts earlier today kind of likened it to the Teflon you have on your frying pan. They kind of do something similar to that, but for big machine parts that the oil and gas uses. So that's one of the things that was going on there. I also noticed that Watson Valve is part of this company as well. That's a separate name, but on the same site. So we don't know exactly what was happening in that particular building, but that's what the business does. So we expect to hear more from the company in later days here. Well, listen, Dr. Szymanski, thank you very much for coming down and explaining this to us.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
A lot of people wondering if they need to be worried about this, and we're talking about the immediate neighborhood. You don't see any concern at all for anybody who lives, let's say a mile or more away from.
That's correct.
From this plant. Okay, so Baylor College of Medicine providing us an expert here, which we appreciate very much. We hope you have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you
as well. Again, thank you for having me on.
Yes, we appreciate it. Let's go throw up some more aerials here real quick. I'm going to wrap this up and just let you know what's going on here. We mentioned the 18 people who self-reported to the emergency room. We can tell you that 48 people were being sheltered at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is in the neighborhood there, 4703 Shadowdale. If you know somebody in the neighborhood or you're missing somebody, they may be there and not in their homes. So that may be a place to go. They probably could use some donations too. I see Salvation Army and Red Cross on site there in the parking lot of the church, helping people not just with a place to stay, but also with supplies, anything they may need. Again, a lot of these homes are going to be unlivable at this point. Some will be okay, but a lot of them will not. Almost all of them. 200 homes in these two neighborhoods, West Branch and Carverdale, have damage. Almost every single one of them to some extent. Some devastated, others a minor damage. But when you're that close to this explosion, you would expect some sort of damage. Interesting here, before we go, I just want to bring up what happened during this press conference with Chief Art Acevedo, our police chief. He's not a bashful man, as we all know. He takes on the people or organizations he feels need to be taken on. And today he took on the U.S. Marines because apparently one of the victims, one of the workers here, has a son, 21 years old, who is a Marine at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. And apparently Marine protocol, Department of Defense protocol, is he cannot come home, be sent home, be released from duty, at least temporarily, to get back here until it's absolutely confirmed that his dad is one of the two victims. The chief's point was, we're pretty sure here. His car was in the parking lot. He's one of the only two still missing. We believe we know who these two people are. Their families have been contacted and told, your loved one is probably gone. And the chief's point was to the Marines directly, release this young man, let him come home to Houston so he can be with his family in their time of grief. So that's what we heard from the chief. We are going to be checking this out the best we can with the Marines to see if it's just a temporary delay or if they really are going to wait for confirmation on that death, which may take a while given the fact that the two victims were in an explosion and it just may be difficult to do immediately. So I don't know that to be the case, but it was just interesting to me that the chief mentioned that during the press conference, calling out the Marines and asking them to send that young man back here to Houston. So we will have the very latest for you on this. We have reporters all over the scene out there in Northwest Houston on Gessner. We will have the TV side for you coming up here in just a couple of hours on the 411 at 4 o'clock. I'll be anchoring that along with Reka. So we hope you can join us then. And of course, keep it here on our digital platforms. We break in here anytime anything's going on, and we'll go as long as it takes to get you all the information that you need on the big story. So if you haven't downloaded our news app yet, now's a good time to do it. I try to remind all of our viewers, anytime there's a big story like this, our news app is not only a great way to stay in touch all the time, but if you go to the settings and turn on the push alerts, and allow that to happen. We send push alerts occasionally right to your phone when something big like this happens. So you know what's going on, so you know that we're live on our digital platforms, so you can, if you choose to, tune in and get the very latest immediately and not find out an hour or 2 or 3 later that this has happened. You can get it right away. So if you don't have our app, download it onto your phone, and then when you get to the settings there after you've downloaded it, turn on the push alerts so you can know when something like this happens. This happened very early this morning, 4:30, and a lot of people were surprised later in the day. They may have heard it. People heard it 30 miles away, but they didn't know what it was. Our push alert would have helped you out with that, and you could have tuned in right away to figure out what was going on. So we will see you on the TV side or back here digitally whenever anything breaks. I'm Russ Lewis. We'll see you soon.